Hello and welcome back to episode 5 of the Tardis Talk podcast. Today, Mr. Scarlo, I mean, you know, we're kind of launching the new wave of Tardis Talk, because last time, I guess, and even though it's episode 4, I mean, you know, it's kind of episode 1 of the new era of our stuff. And you know, we talked a lot about you know, the Sonic and all that lovely stuff, the 60th. But today, and this is kind of the future of TARDIS Talk, we are going to be doing reviews of Doctor Who. We're going to be doing Classic Who, we're going to be doing books, we're going to be doing Big Finish, and obviously we're going to be doing Modern Who. And then whenever the 60th and then eventually Series 14 comes out, we're going to be doing all of those too. But today, we're going to be doing Revelation of the Daleks. So, I mean, just flat out, what would you rank Revelation out of 10?
Either a 6.5 or a 7. What about you?
Yeah, I think I gave it a 7. Yeah, I think because I remember I watched it a few months ago, and I'm pretty sure I gave it an 8 then. But from rewatching it, I gave it a 7 because I was like, there are a lot other stories which are really deserving of an 8, but this is kind of, there's a few little bits where I'm like, maybe not. So I'd say, yeah, about a 7 to 7.5.
Part 1 for me was the main problem. It was like, even for 45 minutes, it was slow. Like, not much happened.
And I felt that definitely with the Doctor scenes and with Perry. And it was like, they spent 40, I mean, they don't even get to tranquil repose until the start of part 2. So it's like, really, in part 1, all they achieve is having a statue fall on him. That's all that's all the Doctor does.
There was only really 2 standout moments for them in part 1, which is when the mutant guy is talking to Perry as he dies, and the bit at
I think this,
and the bit at the end of part 1 where he's on about, the Doctor's on about, this is where I die. Like, that bit, that's quite cool. But aside from that, they don't do much.
Yeah, I like that bit where he kind of realises, this is the body I'm going to go in. I definitely feel like this is one of those stories where it feels very New Who.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's got the 2-part kind of 45 minute format.
It's also the last one to do that before New Who for 45 minutes.
This definitely feels like it's the way, and it very much feels like kind of New Who 2-parters does, is part 1 is all set up, and then part 2 is all dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I think that New Who, and we'll kind of go through it as we go through the story, but New Who really picks a lot of the aspects of this story into other ones. And like you said, that moment with the kind of, you know, when Perry's talking to the kind of failed experiment dying, it's very similar to kind of, I almost kind of thought when I watched it of when Donna was seeing the Ood die, the Planet of the Ood.
Yeah, I definitely see, where you get that from.
Yeah, and I feel like there was so many moments, and not just moments, but obviously directorings, and it makes sense when we get to that, from this, which evolution of the Daleks and Daleks in Manhattan took from this. Obviously, the fact that, you know, they're kind of mutating the Daleks and they're growing them. There's like this failed experiments kind of looming around, like the pig slaves.
Body snatching in this.
Yes,
not exactly the same way, but similar.
Exactly. There's so many things in this which I was watching. I was like, this is very, very similar to kind of how it all comes together in the future. And I'm just going to check now who actually directed Evolution, because I know that obviously Graham Harper directed Revelation of the Daleks, which is obviously this story. And I'm just wondering then if, because obviously I know he does some, or has done stuff for New Who, so if he did the Series 3 Dalek 2-parter, because that makes sense, because there was a few shots where there was a bit where the 2 body snatchers were hiding as the Daleks kind of came past, and it was identical to the shot where the Doctor and Tallulah are hiding and it comes past. Like, it was literally the same shot. And there was a few other ones as well which I saw, which was there was when all of the kind of workers were kind of lined up, and then you had I can't remember the character's name now. I think he was called the dude who was played by, he also played what's his name, Mr. Copper. I think he plays Jobal. That's his name, Jobal. Played by Clive Swift. He played Mr. Copper in obviously Voyage of the Damned. he's talking to his kind of workers, and it's identical to the shot of the Daleks talking to their human workers in Daleks in Manhattan. Like, there's so many that are kind of working with this story. I think it's really good. I'm just gonna quickly check what the Daleks in Manhattan, what's it called? Director is Daleks in Manhattan director, and obviously now's the time that it stops loading. Let me have a look, because I think that this story definitely is a template for New Who. Because I know that obviously I don't know what season. I know this is season 22, but I know a lot of the kind of later Seventh Doctor stuff was when it really started to get into kind of New Who territory. I think from late Fifth Doctor onwards was when the show really started to kind of merge into that new era of television, I guess.
Yeah.
In Manhattan director. Just having a look. So it was James Strong who directed Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution. But I mean, Graham Harper was working on the show, so he could well have been like, maybe do this, like something similar. Or even just because the stories are kind of similar in what they're doing, he could have well looked at Revelation and been like, oh, let's do stuff like that. Yeah. Like shot wise. But yeah, anyway, so we're slightly just veering off track. We'll kind of go through in story order. So I mean, the title sequence. I really like this sequence, and I think the theme's really good as well. I mean, it's the same kind of theme variation and sequence that we use for the podcast intro. I think, I don't know, what would you say is your favorite classic series intro? Like not including TV movie.
Oh. It's a toss-up between the original and the one used for Trial of a Time Lord, season 23. Because...
yeah, I do like that one.
I think... Oh, what was that you were saying?
It's so hard. I was going to say it's so hard because so many of them are so similar in classic Who, because whereas like for New Who, when the sequence changes, it's a big change. Whereas here, they kind of almost gradually change. Like, out of all the sequences in general, just while on the topic, I think my favourite's probably... because obviously it's weird, because when you're thinking about sequences, there's the theme tune and then there's the visuals. Because I think the Series 4 theme is probably the best.
Oh, yeah.
But then obviously those visuals aren't the best. Like, the visuals probably go to... and like, I'm not even meaning quality-wise, but kind of like what they do with it. I think that almost... I really like Jodie's visuals. And obviously they are the best quality as well, which it just so happens.
And also the music. And I like how in Jodie's era, like each series, it's slightly tweaked.
Yeah, because I know season 12 there was like a little extra flare on the logo, I think. And then there was like some slight colour changes.
Yeah, and then the music as well. I can't remember what they did with the music in series 12, but I know they changed it. And I
think they got rid of something.
And I know they added like a bass line for Flux, I think. Yeah,
Flux had the bass line, and then I think they made some of the bits like a bit higher in pitch, and then obviously it had that kind of rainbow colour flare.
Oh yeah.
So I think that rainbow colour flare is because like when you look at it from the season 11 Woman Who Fell to Earth title sequence to then I guess the Flux one or Power of the Doctor, you really can see it different. Like the series 11 one is so much darker. Mm-hmm. And then when you play both themes as well, you can kind of hear the difference.
They started it with Revolution of the Daleks. Like that's when it got brighter, and I think I don't know why, but they kept it, and I'm quite glad they did, to be honest.
It fits her Doctor much more.
Mm-hmm. And whilst I liked it being darker, I still wanted like a little bit more light in it.
Yeah. I think that the only reason why I'd say, because her title sequence could be the best visually wise, but I think the only reason why it's maybe not is because it lacks a TARDIS.
I actually I actually like it as it is. I don't think I'd want the TARDIS in it, to be honest.
I think the other thing is when we get like shots of her TARDIS flying through her vortex, I almost wish we saw a version of like a time tunnel intro for her, because that vortex is really nice looking. Mm-hmm. So to have like an actual proper intro with her TARDIS flying through it, that would have just looked so good. So I feel like that's also, it kind of subtracts from it a little bit. But excluding that, I'd say her sequence is very, very up there. But I think, I don't know, I think my favourites, because I like what 7B does, but then it almost feels like they just pulled a few different pieces of stock footage together for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think visually then, I don't know.
I watched Bells of St. John fairly recently, and I like the idea, and I know why they wanted to change the title and the theme, but they don't match together, if you know what I mean.
They don't, and that TARDIS, I'm sorry, that TARDIS looks awful.
Oh, that CGI TARDIS. Oh.
Yeah, that's worse than the Jodie reveal.
And the doors come out the wrong way before.
Yeah, like it doesn't look like it looks much better in Capaldi's sequence, because his sequence is kind of lit more like the kind of how the TARDIS is rendered, but the TARDIS,
a similar colour
you can. Yeah, that's the thing. It's all kind of, even though you can tell it's still kind of green screened onto it, I think you can tell it fits in with its environment. But with 7B, the vortex is all red, and then you just got this like blue TARDIS, which has clearly been lit in white when it's been rendered, and then just green screened on, and it looks so cheap. And the fact that was the 60th, wait, was that was the 60th sequence, wasn't it?
No.
50th.
They just did the original one. The one from the 60s, just slightly updated.
Oh yeah, and then it faded into the Coal Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder. I don't see the 60th doing something like that.
It would be cool, but I doubt it.
I think the 50th was very much a celebration of like the entire kind of history of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it was meant to be. I don't think this, even though the 60th obviously still represents that, I don't think it's meant to be that. I think the 60th is more just, it's a Doctor Who celebration, and we're just going to celebrate like we picked a theme which happened to be Ten and Donna, and we're running with it, and that's going to be the theme.
Yeah, and then put other things in it from other eras, like the 20.
I think that I think that the 60th sequence is going to be either a complete remake, so like, basically just an updated version of the Series 4 Vortex, or it's going to be remade of that, obviously with slightly new visuals, and obviously you've got Jodie's TARDIS instead, with a few extra new shots, but you change the Vortex colours to be this kind of pink and blue nebula that they're doing.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, with what they've overhauled the socials, I think that's like a little glimpse into the title sequence for me.
And the fact that it's on the actual logo for their, I was going to say their Twitter, but for their fuck X, it's called Twitter. Fuck Musk, it's called Twitter. You don't know what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think, because the fact that they've put it on the logo for their socials, because it's like, that's kind of what Flux did when it had its kind of cracked version, and then obviously that was to do with the plot, and then I think there was like an
infinity symbol for the Daleks, and
yeah, exactly. It was like it all kind of tied together, and I think the fact that, because they could have just done it for the posters, but then the fact that they've changed all the logos too, that's what's making me think that that sequence is going to include that. But anyway, moving on from kind of future sequences and stuff, back to Revelation. So yeah, we kind of established part 1 does feel kind of slow. I mean, it's all very much setting up the characters.
Mm-hmm. Like
if that,
what's it called, Jobel and Tassum Baker or something.
Yeah, I have her name here. Yeah, Tassum Baker.
That's it. Yeah, like I didn't gel with their storyline, to be honest. It was just
also I know his cheesiness shows up more in part 2 with Perry, but he's a real slimy character.
Yeah.
And I loved that bit when, again, I kind of arcing to the kind of more modern feeling of the story, with when, not only was when Six and Perry were bickering, like when they were climbing that wall, like I thought that felt very kind of modern. I really liked that. That felt very Ten and Donna. But also, then when Perry was like, "Get your hands off me, you creep," it's like, it felt very kind of, it's like you could tell these characters actually had, even though the story felt slow, when they were given stuff to do, they had good material to work with.
Mm-hmm. because I've not watched all of Six's stories, but from the few I have watched, like the Six and Perry do have a nice chemistry together. And,
Yeah.
and I can't comment on the twin dilemma because I haven't seen that one. Because even though I know he strangles her in that.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen that clip, I'm sure, at some point. I've not seen that one either, so maybe we'll get around to that at some point with that scene. I'm sure we'll have to devote an entire 10-minute segment of that review to that scene. But yeah, I really like their dynamic, and I think as well, like you said, with kind of Jobal. Oh yeah, just on the topic of Jobal and Tassan Baker, when she kills him, I was laughing so
Like,
much.
How did he not notice that her hand, she had something in
I
her
know,
hand?
but the whole scene was so funny because she's like, "You fat ogre of a man" or something, and then he's like, "How dare you? My weight is the height of fashion." And then she stabs him, and she's just like, "Oh!" She like screams, and then he's just like, "Oh!" And then she just runs off, and then to top it all off, his wig comes off as he hits the floor.
Yeah.
I really hope. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I feel like if it wasn't, they were definitely like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was funny, and there's a few funny deaths in this story. Like when the DJ gets exterminated, it lasts like a bloody minute. He stands there and he's like, ah, and then he just falls, and he's like, oh.
I quite like
the classic who deaths are funny.
I think the DJ is one of the better characters of the story, to be honest.
Yeah, I think because in part 1 he's very made out to be like, what the hell is this guy? And then part 2, when we see him with Perry, he actually gets a character a bit more.
Yeah.
And I mean, come on, we have to give credit for that weapon. I mean, he kills the
Daleks
Daleks.
with rock and roll.
Yeah, defeating Daleks with a rock and roll weapon. I mean, I know when obviously the writer who for this one was obviously Eric Sorwood, when he did this one, he thought, aha, yes, I know how to kill the Daleks.
Music.
Yeah, rock and roll, and then the fact that the music played as well when it was shooting them. But yeah, again, like you said with Jobal and Tsambika, it's very much, and I mean, it's even said there's almost like a double act thing kind of going on here in this story, because you've got the Doctor and Perry, you've got Davros and the Daleks, you've got Jobal and Tsambika, then you've got I've forgotten then you've got
Orsini and his guy.
His weird, I don't even know what the hell he is, but that thing. I say thing, he is a person, but I feel like he said he was a special type of person or something.
Yeah.
Yes, you've got that. Then obviously you've got Kara, and I can't remember the person that Kara works
two body
with.
snatchers.
Yeah. Oh, is it Kara and Orsini as well? Oh no, Orsini's the I can't. Is it Takis?
It could be Takis. I'm trying. Let me just.
The person that the person that hired Orsini, the woman, and then the one she works with.
Right.
Like there's a lot of double acts going on here.
Yeah.
Which works because they all kind of collide at the end. They're all doing their own things, but it's all kind of coming together because obviously, she's hired them to kind of work together. Tyra Orsini and his guy, who then go to fight the Daleks at the end. And then the Doctor and Perry end up there too. The two body snatchers end up there too. Obviously Orsini and then that help get there. There's a lot of. That's why I feel like this story works really well, because part 1, although slow, sets up all of these different characters, and then part 2 gets the ball moving really quite fast. I think part 2 is really well paced, and then it gets them all together.
Mm-hmm. And I know I'm jumping ahead with this, but I did not expect the Renegade Daleks to appear.
Yeah, I didn't either. When obviously one of the workers was like, I know who to contact, I did kind of suspect, okay, is this where we're going?
At all. I must have missed that line, or if I did, I didn't know who to think of, because when they appeared, I was like, what are they doing here?
Yeah, because he said he knew someone to contact who would be very interested in Davros, and I thought, okay, so this is where. And then obviously the Daleks rock up. And we get, I think it's the first time that the Necros, so like, the kind of Imperial designs and the grey Daleks meet on screen. Like this is the first time they come together, and then Davros is taken away.
Imperial Daleks, white and gold ones, have actually, I think I want to say that's their first appearance, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I think this is their first appearance. Because this design is slightly different to when they appear next, because this is using the model of the Grey Daleks. Then they've taken out one of the neck slats and they just slapped on the paint, and it's a different kind of paint as well to the later ones that when they're more shiny. They've built whole new models when they come back. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure this is their first appearance. I don't think I'm wrong, because I'm pretty sure the story before this is
Resurrection, and that's
and they're not in that.
Grey ones.
Yeah, so this is definitely their first appearance. But yeah, I think that design is pretty nice, and I think as well just kind of again, now this probably might be direction, might be set design. The colours in this story are really good. Like you've got you've got obviously the blue. I mean, he looks great in that blue cloak, and that blue Perry outfit's iconic. And you've got the kind of white, cold blue outside, and then inside it's all kind of much warmer. You've got the kind of gold corridors, and then obviously they're all wearing like a different shade of blue.
It's that scene in, what was it? Was it the lab where like there's a pink light? I like that part a lot.
Yes. Yeah, there is. Yeah, I like that too.
That was really well directed, which now I found out it's done by Graham Harper. Kind of makes sense, because he has probably, maybe not my favourite New Who director, but like definitely my top 5 at least, because they definitely, for like when they know they have a really good story or a really big story, they seem to pick him. Yeah,
like he's the one they go for.
I'm trying to think. Did he do Waters of Mars? I'm not sure if he did Waters of Mars, but he's done loads of good stories. Like he's done.
I'm trying to look up the list now if there's any.
I know he did the Cyberman 2-parter in series 2, like Rise of Cybermen just still.
Okay, so I think I have the list here of the ones he's done.
Right.
Might be wrong. I'll go through them all. So we have Warrior's Gate, which is classic. Caves of Androzani. Revelation of the Daleks, Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel, Army of Ghosts Doomsday, 42, Utopia, Last of the Time Lords, Time Crash, Partners in Crime, Planet of the Ood, Unicorn and the Wasp, Turn Left, Stolen Earth Journey's End, Waters of Mars, and then his Sarah Jane, he did Enemy of the Bane, Temptation of Sarah Jane Smith, and then Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane.
Okay. So yeah, he's directed quite a few good episodes, and like you said, he's also done Planet of the Ood, which we've mentioned before,
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, they've obviously, because I mean when Russell writes, I know when all the writers write, they kind of talk about the directors. So maybe they kind of said maybe there was a scene where Donnie sees the Ood, but maybe Graham was like, let's do that here instead, because like. This makes sense now while there's so many kind of matching shots. But yeah, so he's done 4 finales. Wait, no, 3. He's done 3 finales. So Russell's basically given him all of his, because he didn't write in series. He didn't he didn't direct in series 1.
Yeah.
But everything else he did when he came on. He did all of Russell's finales.
Interesting.
So. Then he was also given the really big episode, Turn Left, Waters of Mars.
Yeah.
He's done a lot. Yeah, some of he's done so many really big stories. But yeah, it's interesting now that it is him. But yeah, he's definitely a good director. It'd be interesting to see kind of who Russell picks to, because obviously I know because Rachel didn't do any of Russell's episodes before, did they?
No, she started with Capaldi. She started with the Series 8 finale.
Yes, it's really interesting that I think that obviously Russell, who's probably the one picking the directors, thought,
because he's picked.
They were really good.
Oh, I know. We know the directors. I can't remember all the names, but Rachel Talalay is a standout because we've had her before, and also what's the other guy, Mark Tonderai, who's doing the Christmas special, because he did Rosa and was it Ghost Monument? I know he did another episode in Series 11.
Ghost Monument had some good stuff.
Yeah. So
Rosa did as well, to be fair.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how Well, because his episodes were filmed in South Africa, so I wonder how his episodes filmed in the UK will be like. And it's interesting to see that he's bringing, well, outside of the cast, these are the two people, crew-wise, that are returning, which is going to be interesting to see how they deliver with their specific episodes.
I almost wonder if Moffat kind of pushed Russell to go in Rachel's direction. Maybe he was like, definitely get her on.
It could be, or Russell has watched the episodes like she directed, like Heaven Sent or Well Enough Time, saying, wow, she's really good, I'd definitely want her on if I ever did it again.
Yeah, he probably, definitely. He's probably gone back and kind of looked at the best kind of directed episodes and then gone, alright, can we get them?
Yeah, especially when Heaven Sent's like the second best episode on IMDb, I think.
Yeah, for cinematography wise, I think it's probably the best directed episode, like out of all 60 years of the show. So yeah, the fact that then he's got her back to work on the 60th, and I know we're just slightly veering off topic. We will get back to the Revelation discussion, but something I think you noticed, I certainly noticed, was from the two switches, and it's kind of funny. Now to think of this, it's actually really funny. I only just had this thought. Obviously, she did the handover from, she directed the scene of Capaldi into Jodie, and then I think she comes back 1 years later to then do Jodie into Tennant. It's weird that she's doing both ends of that. So, because I think you really noticed the kind of direction, because when Chibnall's era, I find, has a lot of close-ups and a lot of kind of just static medium shots. The camera's just on the ground, they're close up to the characters. Like in most obviously there are some really good ones, but in most of the stories. And then you can tell there's a difference, because in that, when Capaldi regenerates into Jodie and she's still she's still directing that scene of her in the TARDIS, there's still a lot of high angle shots. There's like a point of view shot. There's there's some really good, there's like, you can tell it's her, like there's a lot more different shots. And then again, when the person who directed Power of the Doctor is doing the regeneration scene, it's very close up to Jodie's face, and then it pulls back to see the regeneration, which you kind of have to do to kind of show it all off. All the regenerations have that pull back shot. And then
also,
when it's Tennant appears,
I'd say is the most stunning regeneration, that one.
It definitely is. But then, like, when Tennant appears again, or 14, and then Rachel takes over that scene, the camera's kind of, it's a wide shot again. It's not so close up on Tennant. You can see all of 10, you can see the TARDIS, you still see the background. Like, you can tell that she's, I think that's why her director, I don't know the word, but her directions, I guess, are much better than most of the ones in the Chibnall era. But, like you said, the guy who did Rosa, and then, sorry, what was the other one he did?
I think it's the Ghost Monument.
Oh yeah, like, thinking about it now, the two episodes that stand out to me with like the kind of more high up angle shots are those two shots. You've got the kind of far away one of the TARDIS. In Rosa, when she's walking away from Krasko, it's kind of higher up and you've got all the gang walking. It's like them two kind of think very similar direction wise. And I think it's going to be really good then, just even for continuity, for two directors that have their own ideas but have similar ideas of how they should like kind of direct scenes. It's going to be the 60th, I think, quality wise, you don't think about how much direction actually plays into it. But then when you have someone like this story with Graham Harper and Revelation, and then obviously Rachel, and then the one for Rosa, you can tell that it makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, back onto Revelation. Aside from the direction, and we kind of covered the characters, it did have some really great actors in it. I think the acting was really good in this story, because obviously, Clive Swift, who we've said played Mr. Copper in Voyage of the Damned. He did act that character really well, because he really gave off that slimy kind of
guy until you mentioned it.
When I was watching it, I kind of thought, is it? And then I looked, and it was.
But now thinking about it, because I finished part 2 yesterday. I was like, it was time of recording, and now I'm thinking about it. The voice does sound familiar. It's like, how did I not pick that up?
That's what I picked up on. I picked up on the voice, because obviously he looks. You can see it's him when you look at them both, but he looks very different.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to double check. But yeah, so obviously he's very good, and obviously I think the Doctor's very good in the story, especially when he gets those scenes with Davros.
Oh yeah. Quite like Perry in this too.
Yeah, Perry's good. The DJ's good because of how he can switch up so fast between his act and his real self. Like, it's really good. Even if his death was a little bit exaggerated, but maybe he was directed. Maybe Graham told him to do that.
Graham, what am I gonna do? Oh, just be you. Do what you want.
Just how would a rock and roll man die? Do that, and it's like, all right, got you. But yeah, obviously Davros played by Terry Malloy. I think all the main Davros actors, talking kind of New Who only, because you kind of see how they do things. Not New Who, sorry, for TV media only. They all do it very similarly, because obviously they're playing the same character, but they all kind of do it with their own twist. Like the one in Genesis, he's very kind of whispery. He's more calculating. And then you've got Terry Malloy, who's more kind of angry. And he's more like, turn this off!
And you've got Julian Bleach from New Who, who I think is more nuanced in a way. Like,
yeah.
He's cold and calculating, but he also has like that rage at like specific moments.
Yeah, and like when he's laughing and like at the Doctor, he's almost a bit insane.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a giddy, insane child that's kind of just like, I'm so evil, it's funny. And then, you know, you've got... They're all kind of fundamentally different. And I think in this story, this one works. Terry Malloy does a really great performance here. I mean, there is that bit where Davros is laughing at the TV. And I mean, that did make me laugh, because he's just like...
Yeah.
And then when he's laughing at the Doctor. But yeah, what did you expect the Davros plot twist of him... The fake out Davros?
No. But
I didn't either.
I did think it was weird, like, why would they kill him off right there and then? I think that'd be something they're doing like in the last minute or last bit of the story when there was still a bit to go.
Because when, like, throughout the whole time when he was like, you know, in episode 1 and episode 2 up until that point, I thought, oh, because I remembered seeing him in that, and I know when he's in the 7th Doctor story, he's in something similar, and then obviously he's in the kind of Emperor Imperial chair eventually.
Yeah.
So I knew, okay, this is obviously how he progresses into that. But then they killed him, and I was like, oh, okay, so what's going on here? And I thought, then I kind of knew, okay, he's somewhere else. I thought maybe he was just underneath the table and another head was going to pop up. But then, you know, the kind of thing opened and he's there. Like, Davros is there.
Yeah.
In his chair. But, yeah, I didn't expect that. But yeah, I think that scene of the Doctor and Davros are really good whenever they have dialogue together. And that whole, when he said, I can't remember what the line was now, but when the Doctor's like, do you need a hand or something?
Oh, yeah,
because obviously you've seen, he just shot it off.
Yeah.
that was really good. But again, also, I didn't realise this is then, obviously that explains why Davros's hand is like it is in New Who.
Mm-hmm,
because I might...
Yeah, because it's a metal covered hand in New Who, isn't it? And
yeah.
I've only watched Remembrance once, and that was like, well, like October, something around October last year before Power of the Doctor. Like, I can't remember what his hand was like in that. But yeah, it's interesting to see.
Because I might be wrong here. Wait, sorry, what episode did you say? Oh, yeah. Because I might be wrong here then, but about that episode then, because I might be wrong, but isn't this the last time you actually see Davros's chair before New Who, when he's in this chair?
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
Because I'm trying to think what Dalek stories follow this list of Dalek stories. Let's just have a look. There's only one other.
There's just Remembrance between this and.
Then yeah, in Remembrance, he's in the Emperor chair in Remembrance, so you don't see it. Yeah, so then this is the last time. So then it literally just that's why. So then Journey's End, or Soul on Earth, is the first one to then explain that and show what he's done with his hand.
That would be 23-year gap.
Yeah. Well, and probably even longest, obviously, story-wise. You've got all the Time War in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting to kind of see that this, even though, because I think revelation of the Daleks goes under the radar a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because people think, oh, it's not that important because it's before, it's before Remembrance. It's not Genesis. It's not Destiny where they're bringing Davros back. It's not Resurrection where the Daleks kind of start their war.
No. No, you go first, and then I'll say my thing.
Yeah, so I was going to say that this story goes very much under the radar, but this is actually one that sets up so much, because obviously it properly re-establishes that now there are properly two official different Dalek factions that exist. The Daleks want Davros, but they're sticking to what they said. We want you, but as a prisoner. Like, we don't need you anymore. It's not like they're resurrecting him like they did in Destiny. And then obviously, his whole hand getting chopped off. This sets up so much to do with the Time War that we see in Big Finish. Obviously, it sets up the metal hand thing. It sets up the whole kind of Remembrance War, the Dalek Civil War. Like, this story really shouldn't go under the radar as much as it does.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, out of the classic Dalek stories you've seen, like, completely from start to finish, how would you rank them?
Oh, from what I've seen. Okay, so mainly because I've seen Remembrance so long ago now, and I'm meaning like 7 or 8 years ago. I'm not going to count Remembrance as one I've seen, because I really need to rewatch that. So I'm going to say, out of the ones I've seen, which are Genesis, Destiny, Resurrection, the Daleks, The Chase, and then obviously Revelation, I'd say bottom is probably, even though I really like it, I just think that the others are a little bit more interesting. I think bottom is probably Destiny. Then on top of that, you've got probably Resurrection. Then on top of that, you've probably got the Daleks. Then you've got The Chase. Then you've got Revelation, and then Genesis on top. So I'd say Revelation is second out of the ones I've seen. So what would you say?
Trying to remember, because I know I started the Daleks, but I never finished it, so I won't count that. So the ones I've seen all the way through is Genesis, Resurrection, Revelation, and Remembrance. So out of those four, I think Revelation would be my least favourite of the four.
Oh, really?
I still like it, but it's like this part one being slow, the main factor for me putting it down that low. Then Genesis, it's a good story, but I know people have always been saying, oh, it's the number one Doctor Who classic story, or number two.
I do not agree with that.
Because people like to say number one or number two depending on Case of Androsani. I'm not seeing that.
Yeah.
But and it has some really good moments with Four and Navros, and then do I have that right bit with the two wires. But outside from that, it's good, but it's nothing special. Then Remembrance. I quite like Remembrance. The two factions battling, and also it being in a historic location for the world of Who. Also great. And then also you've got Seven and Ace, which is just a great combo.
Yeah, and you've got the Special Weapons Dalek.
Oh, Special Weapons Dalek. Oh, my boy. And then Resurrection of the Daleks is my favourite, and that's I've been told that's an underrated take, or hot take, sorry.
I like that story.
I like it. Well, first of all, it's the first 45-minute part story in Doctor Who. Yeah, but also I like how dark it is. The only real downside to that story for me is Turlo doesn't really do much. But aside from that, I quite like it. Lytton is a good character. He also shows up again in Attack of the Cybermen, which also makes that story slightly better. I'm trying to remember what else. The Daleks are and then you've got the policemen robots who are so.
Oh yeah,
cool.
with the kind of Dalek eye stalk things.
And no, these are... do they have eye stalks? No, I think they're just like policemen who are like androids or something. And then...
No, but don't the helmets have like they're almost kind of similar to Dalek domes? Or is that another story?
I don't know. I don't remember that.
Resurrection of the Daleks. Also, isn't that the story where, you know, the companion leaves?
Yeah, that's where Tegan leaves.
Yeah, Tegan. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so that is the story with their helmets are... I'll send you a picture now. Their helmets kind of have dome-like features of the Daleks. They've even got the Dalek bumps on the helmet, and they have little kind of things for the eye stalks. I'll put it in the Tardis talk chat there. But it's just sending. No, there we go. Sent. But yeah, I think that also kind of links to the kind of human Dalek. I think that, thinking back to it now, Evolution, the Series 3 Dalek two-parter, I think is the modern Who classic Dalek story. Like, if you put any of the Dalek stories in from modern Who in classic Who, you'd be like, this kind of doesn't really fit, like, story-wise. It feels too modern. But the Series 3 Dalek story really works in the classic era setting. Like, they could have pulled it off in classic Who, like that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Revelations. It's, I wouldn't say there's necessarily a bad Dalek story, because some people are like, oh, that Dalek story is awful in classic Who. Obviously, I haven't seen them all, but from the ones I've seen. But yeah, I wouldn't say Revelation's bad, but it's definitely not the top.
Yeah, and now you've just, what you said about Daleks in Manhattan, like the Series 3 two-part, you've just made me realise I gave that a similar score to Revelation. I gave both of those episodes a 7 out of 10, and that's what I gave Revelation as well, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of aspects from this story that is used in that. I think you can see so much kind of that's taken from it. But so just touching on now before we finish some of the key moments of the story. So obviously, like you said, there was that bit in the lab which was really nice with that kind of pink lighting, and you had the kind of brains in those tanks, which are obviously giving off the lighting. But then we have something truly horrific with the man, which is obviously the body snatcher's father in a Dalek.
The glass Dalek is so cool.
And not only the fact it's horrific that you can see it, but it's the fact that he keeps switching between Dalek and human, like his brain. It's like, I don't... Like, that is really... I don't think Doctor Who could, or will do something like that again, because, well, it would just be copying this if it was for the Daleks. But it's definitely this whole idea of the body horror aspect with the kind of Daleks and them mutating things is definitely something we need to see more of, I think.
I've just remembered... I've got 2 fun facts about this story. Do you want to hear them?
Yes, let's hear the fun facts.
Right, okay. The first one is when the 2 body snatchers go back to the lab and there's a second class Dalek. And then they go back again, the Dalek's gone, and then you've got the other Dalek like shooting, the Imperial Dalek shooting at them. That part is technically the first part we see the Daleks hovering or flying, whatever you call them, but it is. Yeah. But since it's not edited, I wouldn't say edited poorly. It's just not edited clearly enough. You don't really notice it. Most people, when sight Remembrance is the first time for that happening, even though it isn't. And no, I definitely remember picking up on that in the story, because I thought it was because I know the lighting's very... It's not the best in that scene, so I can see now why people probably forget. And also, again, with this whole kind of idea that Revelation goes under people's radar. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other fact is, the final scene, like, where they say, let's go somewhere to go. The finished line is, let's go to Blackpool. Like, that, apparently the footage for that ending does not exist anymore, even though it did happen. apparently, I can't remember where I heard this from, but the footage of that finished scene was like, let's go to Blackpool. Just doesn't exist. They just have what is at the end of the episode.
That's interesting. It just kind of ends like that then.
Mm-hmm. Which is, and it also ties into what season 23 was going to be, because Trial of a Time Lord was not what was intended to be, but what ended up happening. Because the first story of season 23 was called The Nightmare Fair initially, and it was going to be in Blackpool, Perry and the Doctor fighting the Toymaker, which they've made a big finished audio of.
That's
in
interesting.
The Lost Stories range. So yeah, those are my fun facts about Revelation of the Dalek.
You should make sure you should get some fun facts for every single review that we have. But yeah, that is actually interesting about that, and also I was just thinking again, like, because you reminded me of that scene of the Dalek. Which I've sort of two things now. Is that so? Hold on, she does. The Dalek that's her father in the glass Dalek. She does kill that, doesn't she? Does she kill him?
Yes. Yeah, she kills.
Yeah. Okay. So I was gonna say that maybe the Dalek then that's flying is just the finished version of that, but I guess not. But the other thing is then just a note on the practical effects of that kind of scene when he's inside the tank. And I think Russell will go back to doing a lot more practical effects, like if he does something like that. But Chibnall's era relied a little bit too, even though because CGI was so good, for some aspects it relied a little bit too much on it. And I feel like and I know they did build a practical prop for the Dalek mutant that was on Lindsay's back in Resolution. But I think if ever they do Dalek mutants in the future again, and the shot can be done practically, they should definitely go down the practical route. Because can you like imagine what like do you think would look better for this scene if that Dalek interior was like a CGI mutant around a guy, or if it was kept how it was? What do you think it would look better, CGI or practical?
Probably practical, yeah.
Yeah, I think that in the future, if they do stuff like this, especially with the Daleks and the Cybermen, they definitely need to work on let's keep the practical elements of it. Because I mean, Ashad had a lot of practical elements and it looked really good. So they just need to make sure that they don't steer too far from, away from the practical effects. And also, I think the kind of practical make-do effects, it looks like he has tin foil around his teeth when he's in that tank, and I'm pretty sure he does. It adds to that kind of whole classic Who element that, this show started from just like makeshift stuff.
Yeah, they didn't.
And they were just kind of making do. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. But do you have any other kind of, would you say, key moments from Revelation, either part 1 or part 2?
The one that's standing out to me is like that, like I said earlier, is that moment, like in the last minute or so of part 1. Where the Doctor's like seen the statue, or whatever you want to call it, with his face on it, and then he goes into that bit about, oh, this is my death, or I can't remember the exact words, but that part is probably my key moment, because I think from what I've seen of Colin's stories, which isn't much, but I think that might be his best and most emotional moment for me.
Yeah, it is definitely a really good moment. And one that I feel like that Perry doesn't actually grasp until a bit later on. Like a few seconds or minutes later. Because he's kind of telling her, like...
Because she just jokes around, but then after a bit she goes looking for one of her face to see if she's here.
Yeah, like she kind of realises. And then, then it bloody falls on him. And she's like, no.
It was also a thought. Because... whilst Perry mentioned it in part 1, like, what happens if I'm stuck here? But I never thought of what I did until when I was watching part 2. It's like, it's interesting, like, how New Who, if I remember the first, I think it was a series 1 finale, where they actually had a programming, like, to put the companion back to their home time. Which I was thinking, like, it's interesting to see that the Doctor did not have that as a precaution in the classic era.
Yeah, maybe this was the moment when he kind of realised, like, he kind of thought, crap, if I die here, like I need to set something up that's going to take him back. But yeah, I think the funny thing is about that moment is because story-wise, it does not make sense that Davros had a statue designed for the Doctor to then fall on him, but then not even do anything to him. And then Davros says, "Oh, it's all part of his grand plan." What plan? It doesn't really make a difference. Like, so then obviously you kind of think, okay, well, maybe they needed like a really cool cliffhanger. And I'm pretty sure from articles I've read before, this was a big cliffhanger because people were like, "Oh, he's dead." Like, you know, and he just kind of had the whole thing of that he's not going to regenerate. So kind of people thought, "Oh, this is going to be an interesting one." But actually, the writer.
You go on.
Thank you. I was gonna say that the writer actually didn't intend for this to be in the script. He never wrote this in, but it was the showrunner at the time who said to the writer, who is obviously, I have the name here, who was Eric Saward. He said to Eric, "I need this, or you need to put this in the story." So it's interesting that it was the showrunner's decision to add that in. Maybe now, because thinking about it, with the whole kind of scene of, like you said, it's a really good scene of him saying, "Oh, I die here. This is the end." Maybe that's why the showrunner wanted it in, because he thought, you know what, this could be really cool for this Doctor.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Because when he meets up with Davros and when the renegade Daleks meet Davros, and he says Davros says he's a doctor, and he says that he's regenerated. That makes sense that he can still know that's the Doctor through regeneration. But how did he know he was going to look like that when he made that statue?
Yeah, that's the. I'm only guessing that maybe because Davros has probably been planning this for a while, so he's probably found out somehow, like, what the Doctor looks like in this new face. That's the only way I can think about it. But it would have been interesting if, or even funny, if it was like the 5th Doctor statue, and then the 6th Doctor's like, "Oh, someone's made a poor attempt to kind of trying to lure me here," and then that's when the Doctor knows this is a trap. Like, it would have been interesting if it was like the 5th Doctor or something. That would have been kind of funny. But unless you have anything else to say about Revelation, then we'll start to wrap things up here, and we'll announce what we're doing next time on the podcast.
No, I don't have anything else to say.
Well, we did speak briefly about Genesis of the Daleks. There is a kind of 6 or 7 minute Genesis of the Daleks review up on the channel. Classic reviews I don't have overly intentions on making, which is why they're going to kind of be sticking to the podcast at the moment. But obviously, if you have any questions for us, leave below and we will answer them next time, or maybe the time after because of how we record and then release. But for next time, we've done kind of our 60th theory. We have a companion TARDIS team ranking coming up soon. But next time is a big finish review of Blood of the Daleks. So another 2-part Dalek story, which is interesting that we're doing 2 Dalek ones in a row. I promise you, even though I am called Force Dalek, we won't just be doing Dalek content. It just so happens that next week is also a Dalek story too. So thank you for joining us again, Mr. Scarlo. And obviously Rock didn't make it here today, but they did say that they don't like Revelation of the Dalek and they feel it's a weak end to season 22. I think it's a pretty good end, honestly.
Oh, no.
I quite like it.
Just before we go, I'll just say the other stories in season 22 I've seen, and say, is this my least favourite of them? I'm trying to remember all the ones I've watched.
So,
yeah, I think
in season 22 is Attack of the Cybermen, Vengeance on Varos, The Mark of the Rani, the 2 Doctors, which we will get to at some point, Time Lash, and then obviously Revelation.
Okay. I've not seen 2 Doctors or Time Lash, but I would say like Revelation is my least favourite of the 4, and Mark of the Rani is my favourite.
That's interesting. That that is actually interesting because I haven't seen any of. Actually, no, I have. I've seen Attack of the Cybermen and I've seen Mark of the Rani. But yeah, like you haven't seen the 2 Doctors or Time Lash, so I'm not too sure where I'd place in that kind of ranking. But I'd say from what I can tell, although some of the stories are really good in season 22, I don't necessarily feel like the ending's weak. Like, I feel like it's a solid ending. It's a good story to end it on.
Mm-hmm.
Might have worked better in the middle though, but I just think it's not necessarily a bad ending to the series. But yeah, so on the topic of next week of Blood of the Daleks, maybe make sure to listen to that, viewers, or before we get round to it. But also then the following week, we are going to be doing our TARDIS team rankings, which was made by Mr. Scarlo here. And we're going to be ranking all of the TARDIS teams, which should be very interesting, because we're all going to have to agree on that, which I'm sure will be a nightmare to do. And then following
we'll
that,
also show our own as well.
Pardon?
We'll also show our own personal ones as well.
Yes, we'll show our own personal ones. I guess we'll show them at the end. So we'll do our joint one throughout the podcast.
Makes sense.
And then at the end, we'll show where we place them all. Or maybe each companion will do. So we'll decide where they go. And then we'll say, oh, where did you put them? But so that will be the following week after Blood of the Daleks, and then after the the TARDIS team rankings, we will be doing our first New Who review, and then there will be a vote where you can vote weekly from then on for what we review next, and it will either be out of a selection of Big Finish, a selection of New Who or Classic Who. And then every now and then we'll throw in a book review, and we'll throw in another special kind of review. But that is all we have time for today. Make sure to join the Discord in the description. There are loads of Big Finish giveaways, which we are doing a Blood of the Daleks giveaway. So maybe you can go in and watch that or listen to that before next week's podcast. Thank you for listening. And again, thank you for being here, Mr. Scarlo.
Thank you all for inviting me.
And we will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Bye.